Good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Just to introduce myself, my name is Adrian Winkles. I'm the chair of the BCS Cybercrime Forensics Special Interest Group and also the OWASP Cambridge chapter leader. I'd like to welcome everyone to our first online event in these times of COVID-19, one of many over the next few months to come. I have great pleasure in introducing my colleague, Deepinder Chhabra, or Deep for short, who is a security consultant from Verizon, who is going to lead our talk this evening. And some house rules. We're going to take questions in the question box of the control panel for GoToWebinar, and Deepinder will answer the questions at the end. Just to be aware, the presentation is being recorded, but we won't be recording the questions at the end. Usual Chatham House rules and those sort of things apply in whatever unique circumstances. So I have great pleasure in handing over to my colleague, Deep.
Thank you, Adrian.
Oh, yes.
Thank you. And good evening, all. Know your enemy. Sun Tzu, a Chinese military general, strategist, philosopher, and credited author of a book, The Art of War, quoted centuries ago. If you know the enemy and you know yourselves, you need not fear the results of 100 battles. How truly fitting. 1,000 years later, this still applies to us in today's cyberspace. The main challenge we as cybersecurity professionals face is how to understand the threat landscape that is relevant to our industry and to us. And that's where Verizon data breach investigation reports add value. The DBIR is based on hard and real facts. It is based on research of real breaches and incidents. It provides us the insights that can help us understand the threat landscape and how it has changed over the time. It also can help us understand the profile of our enemies in cyberspace, help us understand who the main threat actors are, what are their motives, and how do they act, and what kind of data and information they are after. So welcome to this session on Data Breach Investigation Report 2020. I would like to thank Adrian, Margaret for hosting me for this webinar, and I would like to also thank Mandy from BCS who has helped us set up this webinar. As Adrian says, first off, probably more to come. In today's session, we will cover what's new in this Data Breach Investigation Report, the key insights, the industry, vertical information, informational analysis on regions and size, and we will cover the common controls that can help us protect against cyber threats. And we will then follow up and finish the session with the question and answer session. So I would like to start the presentation with a set of poll questions. This will, help me present DBIR findings with more context if required. Adrian, if you can, please start the poll. Thank you. Right. Adrian, is it possible to share the results of the polls? Or you can probably call it out, because I cannot share the polls result. Okay. Adrian, do you want to call out the results of the poll, because I cannot see them for some reason?
Okay. The results of the poll are, particularly for Deeps, 4% yes, 96% no.
All right. Okay. And okay, and there's a second poll as well. Does it cover both the read DBIR report, and have you read any DBIR report in 5 years, or just?
Yeah, you have to run one poll at a time. So I'll
Okay,
run the second. I'll second the second one.
Thank you very much for sharing the results, Andy.
Okay, share results. Okay, for Deep's benefit as well, in the second poll, have you read the DBIR in the last 5 years? 46% yes, and 54% no.
All right, thank you very much, Adrian. So that's actually very good. And I think you may have to hide the poll results now so that I can continue, but thank you very much. That's excellent. So let's, as I said, we will cover, what's all this in the DBIR, key insights from DBIR. So let's start off with what's new in this DBIR. So this is the 13th year of our analysis. We had covered, we actually have worked harder to make it bigger and comprehensive and insightful. And when I say insightful, we mean by actionable intelligence. Our effort over the last few years to increase the coverage have actually, or have started to paying off. We actually have more willing partners now from 81 countries compared to 81 countries, and we have 81 contributors as compared to 71 last year. And we have analyzed a record total of 157,000 incidents, of which approximately 32,000 met our quality criteria. And this year we have analyzed more than double of breaches as compared to last year. We have analyzed 3,950 breaches as compared to 2,000 in 2019. And I think huge thanks is in order for each of our 81 contributors. And these 81 contributors include local law enforcement agencies, CSIRTs, ISACs, which is information sharing and analysis centers, governmental agencies, forensics and security service providers, research institutions, law firms, and more. The more comprehensive the data set is, it means that it is more representative of what is going on in reality or in real life. And we can see that it is very diverse portfolio of contributors, and that actually brings much more gravitas to the report. And in this report, we also covered a wider industry vertical coverage. We have included analysis of 16 verticals. It is first time we have also included 4 regional segments and a special feature on small and medium businesses. We not only stopped at that, we actually have compared the analysis of small and medium business and compared it with the large enterprises. We also aligned the report with the Center of Internet Security Top 20 Controls and MITRE attack framework. Adrian, may I ask you to do the next poll, which is about industry verticals, please? Thank you.
Okay, the poll is live.
Thank you.
Okay, so for Deep's benefit as well, results of the poll are in 6% for retail, 15% for financial and insurance, 3% for construction, 18% for educational services, and 58% other.
All right. Okay. Thank you very much, Adrian. Thanks a lot. I mentioned earlier that in this DBIR report, we have introduced, MITRE attack framework, and let me also, talk about, what we have introduced as known as VERIS Common Attack Framework, or VCAF, and we have basically analyzed the type of data, and we have extended to include the data from SIEM, security information and event management, malware-based non-incident data, and combined it with successful incident breaches. And in this figure, we have mapped the percentage of MITRE attack techniques against VERIS actions. So these are the VERIS actions you see. VERIS, I will explain it later on. And this VERIS stands for vocabulary for event recording and incident sharing. And these are the action categories we've identified, and we mapped to MITRE attack framework. And just for the benefit of everyone, MITRE is a non-profit organization that was set up back in 1958, whose mission is to solve the problems for safer world. And MITRE introduced attack, which stands for adversarial tactics, techniques, and common knowledge, back in 2013, with an objective of creating a safer cybersecurity world. And it's quite similar to Lockheed Martin's cyber kill chain that was released back in 2011. It's quite good because you can see how hacking is used at different stages of attack framework. And on a public demand, we have introduced back the mapping of CIS critical security controls against the attack patterns you see at the bottom, and you can see the controls here. It actually shows the percentage of safeguards mapped to the attack patterns. As I said, attack patterns at the bottom, and you can see sub CSA controls. One thing which I find very interesting is, and let me see if it works. Yeah. So if you look at CSE 17, which is a control related to implement a security awareness and training program, it actually protects against or safeguards against almost all the attack patterns we have identified, which is not a surprise. We have seen that again and again, organization focus on implementing technological solutions, and people's side is mostly ignored. But our analysis show that it's actually very important and key part, to get people involved and make them aware, and get them involved as a line of defense for cyber protection. And before we move into, have a deep dive into DBIR, let's look at some key terms used so that we have a common understanding. So let me start off with the, VERIS framework. As I mentioned, it stands for vocabulary for event recording and incident sharing. This is the methodology that was introduced by Verizon back in 2010. This is an effort to create a common framework for classification and to facilitate the information sharing of incident and breaches in a structured way. It shows that Verizon has been, a thought leader for cybersecurity for some years. And VERIS framework is very widely used now for information classification and information sharing. And it's actually look at the 4 A's. It covers actor, who did it, who played out the threat attack, what action do they take and took, what kind of assets were affected, and how it was affected. So if you look at, actor, was it external and internal? Action, what was the action? Was it malware, social hacking? And what was the asset? Was it web server or not, an internal server? And what was the attributes? How it was affected? So in this case, it's showing integrity and confidentiality. And also, just let's level set here. Obviously, all of you probably know what's the difference between incident and breach. But just to make sure we're on the same level, the incident, how we treat is in DBIR is a security event that compromises the integrity, confidentiality, or availability of an information asset. Breach, on the other hand, an incident that results in the confirmed disclosure, not just potential exposure of the data to an unauthorized party. One thing I would like to mention, which is not on the slide, is when we go through various charts, you will come across, or we may come across a category called other, and that is an aggregation of all the items that did not make the cut for our top 10 charts. This is a way to give a better sense of things that may have otherwise been left out. So with the key terms out of the way, now let's look at some of the key insight in this DBIR. We will cover who the enemy, the threat actors are, look at what action do they take, how do they do it, to carry these attacks. So let's move forward. I just would like to mention here is you may notice this colored matrix, on here, and that's basically an inside cover page of DBIR. I must say I was really impressed by the creativity. Apologies for the background noise. I was really impressed by the creativity and imagination of our VTrack team. VTrack team is a Verizon team that analyzes the data for DBIR. They have tried to even make the use of inside cover to reflect something that is useful. It's more than just a simple design. They have used the inside cover to tell a story. It reflects the graphical representation of breaches, actually. And it is a waffle chart that divides the breaches by the region and industry that are covered in this report. And each square represents nearly 1.04 breaches across 16 industries and 4 regions. So let me cover some of the other things that we have included in this DBIR. So as I mentioned, we have analyzed 32,000 security incidents, 3,950 breaches. And what we found is that more than 2/3 of all breaches come from 3 attack types. That is credential thefts, errors, and social attacks. Ransomware still makes up 27% of the malware incidents, and the threat continues to grow. Personal data is the target in more than half the breaches, almost double from a year ago. Almost half of the breaches involve web application attacks. That is twice as many as last year. And 1 in 5 breaches is caused by errors, which represents a doubling of total number of breaches from last year. It is profound, as I said, it's profound to discover that 1 in 5 breaches are actually caused by errors. Now, we have looked at the key insights or key highlights. Let's look at who is behind these threats. Who are the actors? So, Adrian, may I ask you to start the poll, please? I hope, Adrian, that we have the polls in the right order.
This is the poll for which of the following actor type are more common in breaches?
Yeah, that's great. Thank you very much.
External or internal?
Yeah, that's great. We are aligned.
Okay, for Deep's benefit and everyone else's, poll 4, poll results are external, 27%, internal, 73%.
Right. Thank you very much, Adrian. Thanks. So let me share with you what we have actually observed in database investigation report. The DBIR continues to show that external actors are and always have been more common. In fact, 70% of the breaches this year were caused by outsiders. You can see that trend has not changed over the last few years. Yeah, it's a commonly held misconception that within the cybersecurity community that insider actors is the largest group. Actually, on the contrary, our analysis show that external actors are considerably more common in our data than internal actors. Now, naturally, follow-up question is, who are these external and internal attackers? Knowing external and internal actors is not enough. I think we need to know more about these actors. So let's move to the next slide. So if we look at the top actor varieties in the breaches, I mean, we're just talking about breaches, not the incidents. It's dominated by organized crime, followed by nation state, and I mentioned the other category earlier. It's kind of aggregation of all other categories that could not make the top, in this case, top 10, I would say top 5 or top 6 categories. That's what we included in there. So you can see that, how this pans out. And unaffiliated, the top bottom one is very interesting group of actors. These are people from area unknown, and their motivation is not quite clear. This may include would-be hackers who are still serving out, I would say, their apprenticeship. According to National Crime Agency, offenders normally start by participating in gaming, cheat website, and modding, which is related to game modification forums, and progress to criminal hacking forums without thinking about the consequences. Now we know who is behind the breaches. Let's look at what is the motivation behind the breaches. What make these attackers tick? What attracts them? So let me see if I can, start a video. Okay, let me start. 1 second. Okay, application. Skyfall. Right. When we talk about what motivates these threat actors, we are fascinated by cyber espionage. We think of spies like James Bond, using the technical, highly, advanced tools and techniques to get back or regain the control of sensitive information or highly valuable intellectual property from those rogue states who have stolen it away from Her Majesty's government. But what analysis shows is that, let me move to the next screen, uh, that the times have not changed. The majority of breaches continue to be financially motivated. Almost 86% of breaches we've seen in this DBIR are related to financial motivation. And espionage, as I said, gets the headline, but accounts for just 10% of the breaches in this DBIR. And advanced threats, which again gets a lot of buzz, represent only 4% of the breaches. And actually, in reality, the credential theft, social errors actually are the main causes of breaches. Rather than focusing on less likely causes, I think organizations tend to focus on, much more headline grabbing, activities. And what we have seen is that organizations normally ignore the fact that how the breach is actually taking place and continue to invest in the wrong focus areas. Quite disheartening, but there you go. And if we look at we just looked at the top actor motives in breaches, but if you look at the incidents, again, no surprise there. Is continues to be dominated by financially motivated incidents. And you may notice the categories secondary here. So let me explain. Secondary category is related to incidents that involve compromising systems that are not actually the target, but a springboard, or can be used as a launching pad for compromising the target. So far we have covered who the enemy is and what motivates them. Let's now look at the compromise methods. So let's move to, if we look at the, this report, 85% of the security incidents and 78% of confirmed data breaches continue to fall into the same patterns we identified back in 2014. They are 9, patterns you see on the left, and you have everything else as well in there. And growth, I'll just, if you look at the breaches, web applications related breaches have doubled year on year. This single fact, may require us to rethink our strategy, how we, want to protect our enterprises in this, day and age. The web application is the primary method for delivery of digital services. Take, CRM systems, payroll, banking, everything is now, served through web applications. Even email, if we look at corporate email, cloud-based email is now, dominant way of how the email services are delivered. More enterprises are adopting cloud-first strategy, and the pace of digital transformation is actually speeding up. And protecting the web environment, is improving. But if you look at NIST framework, look at identify, protect, detect, respond, and recover, the organizations are lagging behind in developing their detection capability in cloud. And as the speed of digital transformation increases, it is natural that the threat actors will follow the trail. And if you look at everything else, it is a second common category. This is kind of catch-all category for all attack patterns that did not fall into the other 9 main attack patterns. This also include phishing and business email compromise. And you may notice that miscellaneous errors actually are, it's kind of pattern is much bigger than crimeware. And if we look at now incidents, denial of service, dominates this analysis of incidents. And what we have noticed is that packets per second of DDoS attack has not changed over a period of time, and average around 570 Mbps. And actually, you can use your home broadband, to launch a DDoS attack. And if we look at the action, if we look at this year's analysis, the internal error-related breaches actually almost doubled. It stands at 881 compared to last year, and I think increase is likely to due to improved reporting that has been mandated by the the various regulations. And if you look at hacking and social, almost average it's at the same level, but we can see that error is going up. And as I mentioned, it's just could be you can either conclude that number of breaches related to error going up, or you can also look at alternate explanation that it could be down to a higher level of reporting. And I think COVID-19 is not helping. It has forced the organizations to adapt quickly to changing circumstances and unprecedented disruption. And most of the organization has to push through their digital transformation journey aggressively to adjust to the new norm. And it is likely that error and misconfiguration may go up. Simple example would be, I've actually discussed with a few of the customers where they have spun up the public cloud very quickly, move the data over without realizing that actually you expose the data to wider public. That's what we classify in data breach investigation report as a publishing error. And what we have also found is that ransomware is everywhere. Ransomware now accounts for 27% of the malware incidents, and 18. What I would like to mention is that also we noticing is that 18% of the organization block at least one piece of ransomware. But one thing is to take away is that no organization can afford to ignore it. As I covered earlier, if we look at the top hacking vectors, again, it's web application that dominates the chart. Attacks on the web application were part of 43% of the breaches, more than double last year, as I covered earlier. And if we look at the top hacking varieties in breaches, it's basically brute force or attack or use of stolen credentials, and I think that's the main thing to take away. How do you protect your crown jewels or assets from cases of use of stolen credentials? It's natural that threat actors will go for the keys of the kingdom, get the credentials, get in, and you can basically get everything. And as we mentioned, that errors actually, has increased year on year. What I think would be very relevant is to have deep dive into kind of errors we see, and if we spend a few moments to look at the source of these errors, the chart shows that source of errors. This one, and on the right, the chart shows who actually help us discover these errors. And you can see that misconfiguration has, this is the misconfiguration, which is a blue line, has increased almost 5 times since 2015. This can be attributed to internet exposed storage discovered by security researchers. Every time I present this slide, sometimes in question and answer session, I'm asked, what is misdelivery? So let me explain. Misdelivery is related to when you are trying to send information to somebody and you, by mistake, selected a recipient you didn't want to, or also earlier, people used to get confused about publishing and misdelivery, and sometimes they classify it, not consistently, I would say. Though sometimes we have seen where incidental breaches are related to publishing data in cloud due to misconfiguration, but they can be sometimes I would say wrongly classified as misdelivery errors. And if you look at the right-hand chart, interesting thing to observe is that most of the errors related breaches have been discovered by security researchers. And interesting point is that audit, which is at the bottom, um, is not probably effective at discovering these errors, which is quite counterintuitive because auditors come in, they're trying to identify some weaknesses or shortcomings. But you can also look at it from point of view that audit is always sample based. It's not the whole population that is analyzed. So that could be down to low level of detection by audit can be attributed to that as well. So let's recap so far. What we have covered. We have covered key insights, including who the main threat actors are, variety of threat actors, their motivation, patterns of attacks, type of action that cause the most breaches. We have taken a deep dive in this, and in this slide on errors. And let's now let's look at let's look at up close what kind of information the threat actors are after. And personal data was involved in 58% of the breaches, nearly twice the percentage in last year. And this includes email addresses, names, phone numbers, physical addresses, and other types of data that one might find hiding in the email or stored in misconfiguration databases, as I mentioned earlier. And I would like to now, Adrian, you to run another poll for me, please.
Okay, what we have is results of poll 5. As a hacker, which of the following attack strategies would you adopt? For targeting 1,000 firms, a success rate of 10%, we have 66%. And for targeting 100 firms, to have a success rate of 1%, we have 34% polled.
That's excellent. Thank you very much, Adrian. And I think 66% of you are, actually aligned with what we have observed as analysis of a data breach investigation report. And what we have found is that most of the successful attacks are short, likely because it is both cheaper and easier for attackers. Or breaches simply due to a single error. Attacks go after shorter paths and rarely attempt long ones. This means that if attackers go for kind of more steps, there are more likely to be more hurdles in their way, and success rate goes down. And this chart actually shows number of steps per incident. You can see that most of the incidents actually are very short, and you can see that most fall into this category, 1 to 10, and then same goes for breaches as well. So it's quite similar in both the case of incident data and breaches data. Attackers always go for short attack paths. So thank you very much, Adrian. And also, I think it's worth looking at how do the attack take place? What kind of what kind of malware action, threat action varieties usually associated? So if you look at malware, I would say if you look at different kinds of compromise method, malware, if you look at, is breaches hardly start with malware, and malware is normally play an active role in middle and end of the attack. So if you come across you identify an event which is related to malware, it's likely to be at in the middle or end of the attack. And if you it's natural that social kind of attack your social activity. If you discovered anything, that could be at start of the attack. For example, phishing or business email compromise, you will find at the start. You may find sometimes in the middle, but rarely at the end of the attack. So now the questions I've been more often asked is what about the actors? And I think we covered it anyway, but I think one thing I would like to say is that when we look at the DBIR, it seems like it's all doom and gloom. But I think all of us who are involved in defending our enterprises from attacks are doing some good job as well. So let me share this slide with you. I think if you look at the patching, I think less than 5% of breaches involved exploitation of vulnerability, and only 2.5% of security information and event management system seems events involved in exploiting the vulnerability. And this finding suggests that most of the organizations are doing a good job at patching up. So I would say let's keep it up. And if you look at the chart, figure shows that although hacking breaches involving exploitation of vulnerabilities is second highest, it almost peaked in 5% in 2017. And malware sampling indicates that 45% of the malware is either droppers, backdoors, or keyloggers. Although this kind of threat is still plentiful, I think much of it's being blocked successfully. And I think security tools are certainly getting better at blocking common malware, but let's not be complacent. And I think if you look at the patching, certainly we are doing a good job, but it can be, all be derailed by poor asset management. Poor asset management can hide big problems. Most of the organization we see have internet-facing assets spread over across 5 or more networks. And it is the forgotten assets that never get patched and create dangerous holes in our cyber defenses. So although we are doing a good job at patching, I think to keep it effective, we should account for all our assets, and the firm should have a robust asset management system in place to ensure that patching is effective all the times. I did mention earlier that in this DBIR we have actually included analysis of 16 industry vertical. I have just included one because of the time, but as we discovered in our poll that I think you mentioned, Adrian, that almost 15% of the attendees are financial sector, 18% from education, and 15% from others. So I think although I will try to cover it one industry vertical and explain to you, how to explore it, I would suggest that please download DBIR 2020 and look at the industry section, which is specific to your industry vertical. So let me start with, as I mentioned, we have covered, 16 industry vertical, and we have covered 4 regions as well. So let me go to the public sector now. I think it's the right slide. Let me see. Yes. So if we look at public sector, what we have done is we have, done a detailed analysis on each industry vertical. And if we look at in case of public administration, the ransomware is a large problem for this sector, with financially motivated attackers utilizing it to target a wide variety of government entities. Misdelivery and misconfiguration errors also persist in this sector. And if we look at the frequency, that indicates how many incident and confirmed data breaches we have analyzed for this industry vertical. And if you look at the top attack patterns, these are miscellaneous errors, web application, and everything else. These three categories actually represent 73% of breaches. And if we look at threat actors, still dominated by external, but relatively high percentage of internal, followed by multiple, which is 2%, and partner 1%. And if we look at the actor motives, still dominated by financially motivated attacks, followed by espionage, which is natural for public sectors, which is slightly higher. And also it's worth noting that 3% of the motivation is actually just fun. You're carrying out attacks for fun. And if you look at data compromised, dominated by personal data, 51%, other 34%, and credentials 33%. Split again, higher than what we see other verticals. And it's again, compare, if you look at the motives, you can relate it to espionage as well. And if you look at the top controls that may help us protect against, the attacks we've seen in our analysis, is implement a security and awareness training program. Again, I mentioned common and boundary defense and secure configuration. And on the right, it shows the top malware varieties in public administration, which is dominated by ransomware, which followed by command and control and backdoor. And if I mentioned earlier that you can actually go and download the DBIR and look at your analysis that is relevant to your industry vertical. Let me quickly cover what we have included in analysis of regions and size. Obviously in regions we cover North America, Northern America, Europe, Middle East and Africa, Asia Pacific, Latin America and Caribbean. But because we live in Europe, so let's look at the data in Europe. So let me move. Oh, hang on a second, something is not right because I'm skipping. So let me try again. Apologies for the background noise. Just try to. Let me try again. Skipping the slides 2 times in a row. Okay, I think it's slides order is changed. So let me cover the small and enterprise first. Let me see. Bear with me. I'm just going to come out of the share mode, pause my screen, and then we'll start again. Right, let me. So, Adrian, can you check that you can see my screen, please?
Yeah, I can see your screen. Yes.
Right. Okay. So let me.
Europe, Middle East, and Africa.
Yeah, great. I love we have technological challenges. Again, it's taking time to move back forward. Right, so I think we are good. Yes, So as I mentioned, we in this DBIR we covered 4 regions. So we live in EMEA, so that covers the EMEA. So if we look at specific analysis to this region, attackers are targeting web applications with the combination of hacking techniques that leverage either stolen credentials or known vulnerabilities. And cyber espionage attacks leveraging these tactics are more common in this region than others. Denial of service attacks continue to cause availability impacts on the infrastructure as well. And if you look at the frequency of the incidents, we have analyzed 4,209 incidents and 185 confirmed breaches. And top patterns are web application, everything else, and cyber espionage, representing 78% of the breaches. And threat actors, again, external, 87%, higher than what we have seen overall analysis. And internal is 13%, partner 2%, and multiple 1%. And if we look at actor motives, again, dominated by financial gains, and followed by espionage at 22%. Ideology, you can again 3%, not different for fun and grudge. It's quite interesting to see ideology, fun, and grudge at the same level. And convenience 1%. And if we look at data compromise, dominated by credentials, internal and others, and personal data is targeted in 20% of the breaches. So in this region, attackers are going for credentials, the keys to the kingdom, so to speak. And as it's apparent from the previous slide, attackers are targeting web applications in EMEA with a combination of hacking techniques that leverage either as stolen credentials, which is again we have seen in the previous slide, or common vulnerabilities that resulting over 40% of the breaches, and 14% of the breaches in EMEA regions are associated with cyber espionage, which is higher than overall data at 3% of the breaches. And denial of service attacks continue to cause availability impact on infrastructure, as well as making up for over 90% of the incidents in this region. And as I mentioned, not this year, we have also done the analysis on small and medium enterprises. And not only we done that analysis, we have compared the analysis with the large enterprises. So if we look at, I will not go into frequency, but if we look at top attack patterns for small and medium enterprises dominated by web applications and miscellaneous errors and everything else, representing 70% of the breaches. And if you compare with the large enterprise, it's everything else, crimeware and privilege misuse, representing 70% of the breaches. So there's a contrast here. And if we look at the threat actors, quite similar, not very, not much divergence there, only a few percentage points. And if we look at actor motives, again, a similar kind of story. And if you look at, almost same motives and same level with few percentage points. In this small, medium enterprise, I think, if you look at, there's a difference of 4 percentage point for financial motives. And if we look at espionage, obviously it's natural for espionage to target the large enterprises. Now, there may be a few cases where small, medium enterprise may be doing a cutting edge research, so that may constitute why that may provide the reasoning why threat actors are motivated by espionage. Espionage are targeting small and medium enterprises. And if you look at the data compromised, obviously, if we look at small and medium enterprise, credentials common, but personal has come, second with 30%. But in the large enterprises, it's credentials and others. And again, it's natural for, I think, threat actors to go for credentials, keys to the kingdom, is a common theme. So, and if we look at top threat 20 actions, in reference to DBIR, and variety of compromised assets, it shows how it is spanned, by motivated by financial espionage and others. You can look at it in your own time. With that, I think one last thing to look at is, most of the I think when we go out in industry, most of the organizations have very low level of maturity, and they always struggle with cyber, funds for cybersecurity, and one of the challenges we have come across, we are regularly asked how to prioritize the areas to focus on, and not sure which controls we should implement. So I think, as I mentioned, we did a mapping this year, which you've seen earlier, but also we have gone further, and we are identified common controls that may attract, that may protect us against the attacks. And what we have found is that we have kind of made a selection of controls that are common across all industry verticals. And I would say this, if you want to use use this slide as baseline of the controls that you should implement that may protect you from against most of the attacks, but also combine it with the controls suggested for each verticals. So I think that's the key takeaway, and also try to use the slide that shows the mapping against action and threat patterns as well. So with that, we come to the end of this session. Adrian, over to you for question and answer sessions.
Okay, thank you, Deep. And okay, questions. So far, I've got 3 questions, I think. Hello, everyone, from Gary. The video does not work. It's not working on my device, from John H, which we can look at